I blamed him for my emotional affairs. Now he's sharing the messages I thought he'd never find. Hello, Reddits. My name is Joy, and I'm 29 years old. I need your help, guys. I'm in deep trouble. My husband, who I've been married to for 4 years now, wants nothing to do with me, but everything to do with destroying my reputation that I've tried so hard to build. He's turning everyone against me, and I really don't know what to do. I'm at fault. I really did do a terrible thing. But I never expected the shocking thing that Eric had done in revenge. I told him that I blamed him for my emotional affairs after he found out and confronted me about it, and now Eric is sharing the messages I thought he'd never find. I really never meant to cheat on Eric. It just sort of happened, and I blamed Eric for it because he rarely gave me any attention. Eric and I got married 4 years ago, and before that we dated for 2 years. We were the perfect couple, and Eric was so kind and gentle, and he was so romantic. He was the perfect guy that any girl could ever have, and my friends envied me for dating him back then. I met Eric through work. I'm a baker, and I own a small store where I did my baking and sold them and cookies, and also some baked bread. Eric had come in that day for the first time to buy his mom a surprise birthday cake, and I liked him instantly. It was the way he talked and his style that caught my attention at first. I had to deliver the cake to her surprise birthday party, and luckily I got Eric's number through that. I made the best cake for his mom, and Eric texted me the day after the party to thank me for my services, which I dismissed because he paid for the cake anyway. I knew there was no reason for Eric and I to text again, except he had another cake order or something, but I was so desperate for us to talk again that I texted him one evening, a week after his mom's birthday, to ask him out for dinner. Eric was surprised, and he agreed to it. We met that day for dinner, and Eric told me how surprised he was that I asked him out for dinner, and I laughed it off. We had an amazing conversation that evening, and Eric dropped me home. From there, we were always going on little dates until I asked Eric if he wanted to date me. Right from the start of our relationship, I had always been the one to take initiatives. Not because Eric was easy to control or anything. He was quite stubborn and never changes his mind once it is made up. But me taking the initiative on big decisions like dating and getting married. Eric was just happy to go along with it. He never once complained about it and let me do whatever I wanted in our relationship. Although Eric had not been too happy when we got married, I thought that thought would adjust when we actually did. I kind of forced myself on Eric with marriage. Eric had never wanted to get married. He told me that after a year of dating when I kept pestering him about marriage. He told me that he wanted to stay single and be free. I was very heartbroken when he told me that. Eric didn't come from a broken home or anything like that. His parents are still so in love, and their home so put together, that I envy them so much. But Eric just randomly decided that he wasn't going to get married. To me, it sounded like he wasn't ready to commit to me because he didn't love me as much as I loved him. Although I knew that Eric wasn't cheating on me, I still felt like he didn't love me enough. I became really desperate to make our relationship work, so I faked a pregnancy. I knew that Eric was an honorable man, and one day while we were discussing, we talked about children. Well, I brought it up, and Eric had told me that he didn't want children, but it didn't mean he wouldn't do the right thing if he ever had one. It was then the idea clicked in my head. I had to get pregnant with Eric's baby if I wanted him to marry me. I stopped using the birth control pill, and I always ensured to seduce Eric in places where he couldn't reach for his condoms, but would assure him that I was on the pill, so there was nothing going to go wrong. But despite all that, I still wasn't pregnant. I tried everything I could to get pregnant, but I still wasn't pregnant after 4 months. So I purchased a pregnancy test that was already positive online, and I made it look like it was mine. I told Eric that I was pregnant, and Eric was angry, but he didn't blame me or anything. He told me to meet his overexcited parents, and we finally got to get married. We got married within a month after discovering the pregnancy, and although it was a small affair with only family and our friends present, I was the happiest because it was my dream come true. I thought that I was finally going to be very happy after achieving my dream. But then, everything crashed after a month, and Eric discovered that I faked the pregnancy. He wasn't supposed to find out. I was planning for a fake accident that would result in the loss of the baby, but he found out when he wanted to use my phone that day and found the receipt of the payment for the pregnancy test kit. Eric was very angry and refused to speak to me for 2 weeks. When he eventually started to speak to me, I felt like there was a shift because of what I did. He didn't say anything to his parents about my lies, though. He told them I lost the baby. He didn't reveal to everyone what I had done. But between us, there was something that was there that was never there in the beginning. He didn't stop sleeping with me or refusing me when I asked for sex. He didn't stop giving me money when I asked or didn't. He still went out with me, and whenever he came back from his work trips, bought gifts. But I could feel that Eric didn't love me enough, and especially after discovering that I deceived him into marrying me, it just became worse. I wasn't happy. I tried everything that I could to mend that bridge. I tried getting pregnant for years, but nothing was working, no matter how hard I tried. It felt really suffocating being in a marriage and not being happy. There was nobody I could tell, not my parents, not his, and not even my friends. Nobody understood what I was going through mentally. They believed that Eric treated me perfectly, and they envied our relationship. He did treat me perfectly, but that was just the problem. I didn't think he just loved me enough. I know it sounds like gibberish, everything I'm saying, but that was just the truth, and I felt that way for the whole of the 4 years we've been married. It didn't help matters that Eric didn't mind that we didn't have any children. He was clear that he didn't want kids from the start, but I thought that having believed that he had one coming for about 2 months would open his eyes into having one. But after Eric discovered my lies, he refused to have sex without me using my pills in front of him, and if he couldn't get a condom, then we would have to wait until he got one. So there was nothing I could try that would make me pregnant. Baking was the only way I stayed sane throughout those years, and eventually even baking couldn't make me happy. But then something finally did. Something was finally able to distract me from the havoc in my mind. Or should I say someone? I met Dan that day 5 months ago when he came to my shop to buy a cake. There was nothing intriguing about Dan at first. In fact, he isn't as handsome as Eric, and he didn't have anything impressive that was worth noticing. He selected the cake he wanted to buy and bought it, and then left. I didn't mind it. It was normal for a customer to come in and buy a cake. But then Dan started to come regularly. He was either buying baked bread or cookies. We started having little conversations, and eventually I found out that his workplace was quite far, and he had to take a detour just to come around to my shop. When I asked him why he was doing that, he told me he found myself and my cakes intriguing, and he couldn't stop coming for both. I found it shocking that he was interested in me, even after knowing that I was married. I tried not to pay much attention to him, but it was almost impossible because he was always around and he paid me attention. The attention I felt I wasn't receiving enough from Eric. I tried to put a distance between Dan and I, but it was almost impossible. I was starting to get attached to Dan, and I always found myself looking forward to him coming to my shop. He started bringing gifts, and I found myself looking forward to those gifts, even though they were cheap, and nothing compared to what Eric got me all the time. But I felt like he put his emotions into getting it, so I cherished it more than the ones Eric got me. I told Dan everything about Eric and how I felt. He was attentive and understood how I felt. He would tell me how he felt Eric didn't deserve me, and that I didn't deserve to get treated the way I was being treated by Eric. I felt like he understood me perfectly, and I couldn't help but get more attached. He was my emotional dump where I dumped all my emotions into. He was always listening to me, and it would seem like every day I had new complaints about Eric. I thought of him as just a good friend, even though within a month of being friends with Dan, I was starting to feel some other sort of way. I knew I didn't love him, but I knew I liked him way more than the regular liking of a friend. When he wasn't in the shop, we would text, and I would complain to him about Eric. Sometimes lies. I would tell him lies about Eric's behavior sometimes just so Dan could comfort me and tell me things like he wishes he is the one married to me. I started to enjoy it when he left me compliments like that. When he would tell me how beautiful I looked and how much he enjoys coming to see me or talking to me. It didn't take very long after that before things progressed between Dan and I into an affair. It just somehow happened that day. I was pissed at Eric. That day, Eric decided to take a break from work to spend time with me, and I was quite happy, so I took a break from going to the shop too. I texted Dan and told him that I wouldn't be coming that day. We spent the morning in bed, and it was really nice, but then Eric had gone to take a call and suddenly had to leave for work because he had an emergency at work. I was pissed and wanted him to stay back. I know that it was selfish of me, but I couldn't help but want to spend that time with him. Or perhaps I was hoping he would put me above his work and actually stay back, but that hadn't happened because Eric ended up leaving the house after promising to make it up to me. Instead of sitting back at the house, I went to the shop and texted Dan. I just wanted to talk to him on the phone, but he insisted on coming over, and when he did, I told him everything. Well, my own version of everything, and Dan had of course reacted the way I wanted him to, supporting me and wishing I wasn't with Eric. But something entirely different happened that day too. Instead of listening to Dan express his wish that I was his, I made it true for him at that moment. I kissed Dan. I kissed him on the lips, and Dan, who had obviously waited long for that moment, needed no further prompting as he kissed me back. I only withdrew from him to lock up the shop from the inside and led him to my mini office so we could have more privacy. I wanted to vent out my anger, and Dan seemed like the perfect person to do that with. Dan understood the assignment and let me take the lead like I wanted to. He let me undress him and watched me as I undressed. He let me kiss him first before he kissed me back. He let me literally do everything I wanted. He made me feel like I was in control of everything that was happening, and I liked it. I liked it so much. Eric, although allows me to take initiatives on some matters, it was never on sex. Even though I instigated sex between us, Eric always ended up being the one in control. But with Dan, everything was so different and felt personal. He was letting me use him to relieve my emotional torment, and I liked it. After that first time with Dan, instead of regretting the things we did, I blamed Eric. It was his fault for letting me get close to someone like Dan. It was his fault that I went to the shop that day. It was his fault that I kissed Dan the way I did. It was his fault that I had sex with Dan the way I did. I blamed everything that happened on him, and it eased the guilt I never wanted to have. And the other times I slept with Dan were like that too. I blamed Eric each time I laid in bed with Dan at his place. I stopped going to the shop completely and spent most of my days at Dan's place just doing nothing but eating and having sex. It became our routine. It became something I was addicted to. Even when there was nothing that Eric did wrong, I still managed to make up something in my head to blame Eric for, so I could have sex with Dan. Dan didn't mind that I was using him for emotional relief. In fact, he found it erotic when I was angry and just wanted to do crazy things to him, all in the name of relieving myself of my mental stress. He never complained when I scratched his back with my nails when I was angry one time, or the one time I managed to bruise his chest from all the biting and sucking I was doing. He enjoyed it all. He told me he loved how feisty I got when I was emotional, and it only made my appetite to get emotional before we had sex each time more. On days that I couldn't see Dan, perhaps because Eric was home throughout, or I had to go with family to a function, we would text each other on phone, and I would complain about everything. What Eric wore, how the annoying party was going, who I was seeing, and how Eric was annoying me. Dan always manages to calm me down by sending me some pictures. Naked pictures of himself. I would end up staring at the pictures while trying to hide the growing horny feeling. The pictures and the dirty talks were always effective. They managed to remove my anger and replace it with sexual urges, and Dan definitely knew that it would, which was why he sent them in the first place. There were times when Eric and I would be home, and I would excuse myself to the bathroom, only to go take sexy pictures, or even naked ones of myself, to send to Dan, just to get compliments from him, and it worked each time. I liked how he treated me like I was the only one he saw in the world. Eric never treated me like, and I liked that Dan could. I started to get even bolder with the affair by asking Dan to come over to the house on days when Eric wasn't around or wouldn't be back that day. Dan would sleep over, cradling my naked body to his after a good time. 2 months before, everything just turned around and became so horrible. Eric had told me that he was ready for kids, that he wanted us to start having kids, and he apologized for not having given me any, because he knew how much I wanted kids. I was supposed to be happy because he finally came around, but I wasn't. It was all I've ever wanted, even before I got married to Dan, but I just wasn't happy by his sudden decision, even though I pretended to be. I didn't want kids. I did want them, but not just at that time, because it meant I had to stop sleeping completely with Dan if I didn't want to have a child that would leave paternity doubts. So even though Eric stopped using condoms when we slept together, I continued using the birth control pills in secret so he wouldn't find out about it. I didn't want the thing between Dan and I to end, and when I told him about Eric's decision, he was angry and begged me not to get pregnant because he wanted to continue seeing me. Everything was going perfectly, and I thought I was in perfect control, only to discover that I wasn't in any form of control at all, because everything spiraled out of control faster than I could blink. I should have noticed that something was wrong. I should have realized that Eric had found out about everything. I should have known, but I was too busy trying to hide my affair and maintain the image of a good wife to realize anything. Perhaps it was that day when my phone rang in front of Eric, and I quickly dashed out of the kitchen to pick it up. He had looked at me strangely that day, and I couldn't think of a good excuse to come up with, so I just went back to the kitchen with my phone this time. Or perhaps it was the time he woke up at night and caught me in the bathroom taking pictures of myself naked. But then I thought he believed me when I told him I thought I saw something strange on my body and wanted to take a picture to get a good look at it. Eric said nothing about it after that, and I really thought he believed me. I didn't know that I was only leaving clues for him. I didn't know that Eric had found out about my affair through my text. He must have read them earlier that week, because that was when he started acting up. He spent less and less time with me even though he was home, and he ignored me most of the time. I didn't see anything to it at the time. I only just wanted him out of the house, so I could go see Dan, whom I was desperate to be with. But then, everything just came crashing that very day when Eric came home suddenly. He wasn't supposed to be back that day. He told me that he was going to be back in 2 days, and he only left that morning. So imagine my shock when I saw him staring at me from the doorway of our room. I had invited Dan as usual into the house to keep me company and the never say no to sex. Dan was eager to come around. When he came, I couldn't wait to get down with him, and we ended up sleeping together against the wall halfway into the room, and then we repeated the same process again on the bed. Dan asked me to order food because he was hungry, and I did. We were about to start another round of sex when the doorbell rang. I was surprised that the restaurant had delivered that fast, and since I was wearing nothing, I decided to put on Dan's clothes so I could just get the food, and we could continue what we were doing after eating. But when I opened the door, I got the shock of my life seeing Eric standing there looking at me in anger. I was so shocked and must have screamed because Dan came running out of the room while trying to put on his boxers. When he saw Eric, who had by then entered the room, he was shocked and just ran back into the room and then ran out with his clothes hanging in his hands. The coward left me there to deal with Eric alone. Eric, who was obviously pissed, started to say very hurtful words to me. He called me a sex worker and a greedy woman. He called me other horrible names and told me he never wanted to see me again. I was hurt by the things he said, and instead of begging him for forgiveness, I stood there and shouted at him too. I told him it was all his fault that I cheated because of how he had always treated me. I told him he was a horrible husband who couldn't make up for what Dan had given me. I told him he was nothing like Dan, who gave me all the right emotions I needed to feel. Eric stood there and listened to me talk before he just turned around and walked out of the house. He said nothing to me at all. I regretted what I said the moment he walked out, but Eric was long gone before I could go after him. And it's been a week since I last saw him. Texting and calling him made no difference because Eric wasn't picking up or texting me back, despite my numerous texts. Eric didn't stop at only avoiding me. He sent those messages between Dan and I to everyone I've ever known. He sent them to my parents, my siblings, and even our friends. He keeps sharing them, and to my horror, Eric's mother, who loved me like her own daughter, came with 2 hefty men to chase me out of her son's house. She wouldn't hear anything I had to say, and she only just looked at me in disgust. I had nowhere to go, so I decided to go to my parents, who never called me since they got the texts. But when they saw me, they chased me away like I was some stranger and not their daughter, and ever since, they haven't called or texted me either. My friends too weren't any different. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so exhausted. I wish that I would just get the chance to see Eric again and apologize for everything I did. Dan, whom I sacrificed everything for, never called me since the day he ran out of the house. He even blocked me off totally. I know you guys think I'm awful. I know, but I really just want you guys to help me. I don't want to believe that I've lost Eric forever. Please, guys, what can I do? Update. Hello, Reddits. It's been a while. This is my second post here, and possibly the last one, too. I've become too swamped up with emotions lately. It's almost difficult understanding who I am underneath them. Those emotions of sadness, desperation, squashed hope, pain, and regrets are all swamping me so much I can barely breathe properly anymore. Whoever said it got better with time was probably lying, because nothing is getting better. I'm still here stuck in this painful part of my life with no means of escape, and even though I keep wishing I have some sort of escape, so far there's been nothing, and honestly, I don't think there ever will be one. It's so draining having to live like this with absolutely no one on your side. Not even the people you came online desperately seeking their support or comfort, even if it wouldn't do much. To be honest, I expected some judgment. I know I did the most terrible thing on earth, sleeping with Dan, but I came here hoping that somebody would say the right words. I came here hoping that someone out there would blame me for the things I did, but still realize that I regret everything and offer some comfort or right advice. But I was wrong, totally and absolutely wrong. Nobody understands me, not here, and certainly not in my life. I wish I could change back the hands of time. I really wish I could undo my thoughts for coming here, or perhaps go further back in time to that day when Dan had showed up in my shop. I wish I hadn't sold him anything and just chased him away. I wish I hadn't smiled at him when he came back the next day. I wish I hadn't decided to start talking to him when he continued showing up. I wished I hadn't kissed him that day and even gone as far as having sex with him in my shop. I know that I did a terrible thing. I know that Eric will never forgive me. But I hoped, and now that hope is completely squashed with nothing at all to hope for. I keep thinking back to that awful day when he came back home and caught Dan and I together. I should have groveled by his legs. I should have cried and begged for forgiveness, and although expecting none, I should still have continued pleading for his forgiveness instead of saying those terrible things I said. I should have kept quiet. I should never have said them. I didn't mean them. I should never have told him that I blamed him for sleeping with another man. I should never have tried to justify myself when in the end, there was nothing justifiable about what I did. There's no other man realer than Eric for me. He did love me and showed me in the way that he could. He lied for me about the pregnancy just to cover me up, and he forgave me. He stayed married to me despite my lies. He never disrespected me, both in public and in private. That should have been enough for me. That should have been able to prove his love for me, but I just continued wanting for something that was never missing. And now, stupidly, I've lost that man, and his love for me diminished and turned to hatred. I wish I had a better way of describing myself, but I'm sure you guys can think of better adjectives for me. It hurts badly when I'm being treated like this, knowing that I deserve it because of how awfully I had behaved. I know that I deserve everything bad that's happening to me. I know those facts, but it really doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't make it hurt any less. I'm in so much pain most of the time that I wish I could just undo everything. Most times I go to bed with the same wish, hoping that I would wake up back at Eric's place with his arms wrapped around me, and then I wake up to realize that everything is all just a dream. If it was all just a dream, then maybe I would have been able to get past it, and I would have fled from Dan the moment I met him. I would stay far away. I regret it so much. I should never have let my greed get the better part of me. I should have never made the mistake of thinking that it would all pass, or that Eric would never find out, or maybe he would easily forgive me because he loved me. Now here I am in the midst of strangers who absolutely hate me, without having seen me desperately seeking for some sort of affection or comfort, which I already know will never come. There's still no way of reaching him. I know because I've tried several times until I realized that Eric didn't want to be found, at least not by me. He stayed away completely, and I can't help but wonder all the time what he's doing. Is he over me already or still loves me? Does he hate me so much he cannot stand my face, and that was why he left? Does he already have someone in his life? Does he totally abhor the idea of me coming back to him, that he managed to sever all means of reaching him after spreading those messages between Dan and I? Having to wonder about these things without any clear answers is just the most frustrating feeling in the world. The last question is probably true. He hates me. He would, and he does. Nobody wouldn't hate me with everything I did. Even I hate myself so much. I think I hate myself the greatest. I even hate myself to the extent that I cannot stand seeing my own reflection. I barely spend any time in the bathroom like I used to in the past, because seeing my body reminded me of the fact that I had once shared it with Eric, and it also brings the painful part that I also have shared it with one person I never should have. I have so many regrets, and the biggest one is losing Eric. I miss him so much it hurts. It hurts badly, especially on cold nights when usually in Eric's bed with his body shared with me for warmth. I miss those days when we went out on dates or with family and everything was perfect. I should have been able to see it. I should have been able to tell. Why was I so stupid not to have seen? I didn't appreciate what I had, and now eventually I don't have it anymore, and it hurts so badly knowing that I could never get back that love and respect that Eric had always had for me. It hurts so badly knowing that nothing can ever be the same again, that I'm just going to be stuck like this for the rest of my life with my heart and mind in opposition with each other. My brain keeps reminding me every day of that day when I opened the door dressed in nothing but Dan's shirt, only to find Eric looking at me in anger at the door. I wish I had the chance to undo my wrongs. I wish I got the second chance that I desperately wish for. Eric had never done anything to me to deserve what I did. He gave me everything I could ever ask for, and yet I kept missing something that I never had, or even knew what it felt like, because if I truly did, an affair wouldn't have been the next option I would have had. I wish I had a chance to start over again. So I got the chance to tell Eric everything, the truth this time, about how I feel about certain things, and let him help me get past them instead of resorting to an affair that has ended up not only ruining me, but everything I've ever had. The loneliness is the most dreadful part of it all, with no one to talk to, no one to share my thoughts with, no one is willing to understand me or trying to, no one cares about me. It's so draining. The loneliness just keeps draining me out more and more, and I'm at sea, totally and absolutely lost. My parents, my friends, everyone who ever found out about the messages all hate me so much and are refusing to have anything to do with me even until now. I thought that with a few months gone in between, that everyone would forget about it and move on. Well, they did move on, only without me in the picture. I feel like I'm stuck. I'm stuck in that day when Eric had discovered my affair with Dan, and I cannot seem to forget that I could have done everything possible to avoid that day from happening. Stuck in my new room, which is barely large enough for anything other than a storage room, I realize just how much I've lost with just a single decision of mine. I'm only now left to imagine just how it would be if I had never taken those birth control pills. Maybe I'll be a mother of Eric's baby by now. I'll be pregnant with our child. Then maybe he wouldn't have been able to discard me the way he has now, because I will have a connection between us. Our child. All I can think of now is how beautiful or handsome our baby would have turned out to be. Maybe the child will have Eric's face and his beautiful hair, and perhaps his height and only my eyes. But all I can now is imagine just how perfect things would have been in my life if I hadn't been so bent on ruining everything. I'm barely hanging on. I'm barely surviving. It's so draining having to live like this, knowing that I will never get to see Eric again. It's painful thinking of the fact that Eric will move on, or already has. It's choking thinking that he will find someone new, someone entirely different. Someone who is not a liar and a cheat like me. Someone who will love him and cherish him in the way that I haven't ever done. Someone who wouldn't find it within themselves to lie and pretend throughout their relationship like I had. Someone who didn't try to marry him for money. Someone who wouldn't think the world revolves around her and that she deserved to be loved in a certain type of way. Now that I have no one who cares or loves me anymore, I realize just how lonely life is. It's scary just how much you can go from meaning so much to others to meaning nothing at all. In this cold, empty apartment of mine where I have nothing but myself to keep me company, where it's so silent that if a pin had dropped, it would probably be audible. The only noise is the ones in my head and in my heart from all these niggling thoughts I keep having. Now I will have to spend forever regretting and wishing I had been wise enough to foresee the doom before it struck. Even though I know no matter the amount of wishing I do, I will never get it back again. I will never get back to my family again, and that hurts. It hurts so badly, and I don't think I can ever stop hurting or recover from it. Goodbye, guys.